They fired her mid-flight, stripped her access, erased her name, and crowned someone else with her legacy. No warning, no gratitude. But Marin Blake didn't rage. She rebuilt. And when the world finally looked up, the empire they thought they controlled had already slipped into her hands. This isn't a story of revenge. It's the blueprint of a quiet revolution led not with noise, but with precision. Marin Blake didn't always live in silence. She was once the voice behind Venturon's growth, not the face, not the name in bold, but the architect behind every deal that mattered. She knew the regulations of every market before the local offices did. She carried compliance across borders, brokered trust across languages, and bridged gaps executives didn't even know existed. For 9 years, Marin played their game and played it well. Every win the company celebrated came with her fingerprints on it, even if no one bothered to ask whose hands had done the shaping. She didn't crave applause. She craved precision, and she delivered it, again and again, until precision wasn't enough. It began with the Trident expansion, a multi-continent cloud partnership that could elevate Venturon into the elite tier of enterprise tech or sink it. Grayson Hart, Venturon's COO, appointed himself the face of the initiative. Mallory Hart, his younger sister with a gleaming resume and less gleaming execution, was installed as VP of Strategic Integration, a position Marin had already fulfilled in practice for years. The board smiled. The shareholders clapped. Marin nodded, but she didn't sit still. Yuki Asano was difficult to impress. A sovereign data strategist and notoriously skeptical executive, he declined Venturon's first 2 overtures. Marin flew in solo. No entourage, no grand gestures. She sat across from him in a quiet Kyoto office and listened. She spoke only when he was done, walking him through compliance structures designed specifically for Japan's data sovereignty. Protocols, layered with real-time redundancy and zero-trust architecture. No fluff, just facts. When she finished, he didn't smile. "I see why they sent you," he said. "The others speak, but they do not understand." Later, as they walked to his car, Marin paused. "If there were a leaner model," she asked, "same tech stack, fewer layers between need and delivery, would you consider it?" Yuki didn't respond. Not at first. But as he stepped into the car, he glanced back. "Send the materials again." Privately, Brexit had thrown Eurocom's legal framework into chaos. Venturon's boilerplate contracts were riddled with holes. Marin flagged them. Legal ignored her. So she fixed them herself. At 11:40 p.m., in a 2-night rental flat near Kensington, Marin opened her private legal templates once co-developed years ago with Jenna Park, a friend in Travance's quietly maintained legal circle, and rewrote the Trident agreement. She handed it over the next morning to Linda Clark, Eurocom's general counsel. "This isn't the Venturon standard," Linda noted. "It's the one that works," Marin replied. "Unless you prefer a 3-week delay and 50 red lines." Linda skimmed the top page. "You did this?" "Yes." Off the record, Linda smiled, not politely, genuinely. "Next time we negotiate," she said, "maybe you should be sitting on this side of the table." For a moment, Marin felt it. Not praise, but recognition. Not of Venturon, but of her. By the time Marin landed in Brazil, she was exhausted, but she didn't let it show. This was the final leg: financial structuring, revenue models, compliance complexity. Mallory was supposed to co-lead. She didn't show. Marin had planned for that. She'd rerouted herself through Argentina, avoiding internal tracking. Venturon thought she was still en route. She was already there. Luis Mata grilled her for hours. On risk, on capital exposure, on long-term support. When she held the line, when she refused to bend the numbers the board had watered down, he finally leaned back. "I trust you, Marin," he said, "but I don't trust Venturon. I know. If this falls apart, it won't. Unless you leave." That was the moment. She leaned forward. "And if there were a way," she said, quiet and calm, "to get this deal without that risk, without the noise?" Luis didn't blink. "You know the answer. 3 cities, 3 meetings, 3 seeds, not for Venturon, for something else, midair between continents." The final cut came. Her Slack session expired. Her Outlook blinked out. Her credentials were revoked. An email popped up. Termination notification effective immediately. No thanks. No meeting. No explanation. They fired her mid-flight. They thought they'd end her access. They forgot she was the access. They forgot the backup protocol signed off 6 weeks prior by legal that allowed her to retain encrypted offline copies of all Trident work for multilingual support. They forgot the mad black laptop under her seat, unsensed, untouched, and fully operational. She opened it. The wallpaper glowed. Trident. She typed 3 words. Let's begin. And the rest would become the storm. Marin walked him through the exact protocols they'd customized for multi-jurisdictional compliance. Real-time redundancy. Zero trust architecture. When she finished, he didn't smile. He simply nodded. I see why they sent you, he said. The others they speak, but they do not understand. After the meeting, they shared a brief walk to his car. Marin paused, then asked softly, and if there were a leaner model, same tech stack but fewer layers between need and delivery? Yuki turned his head. You mean less Venturon? He didn't respond directly, but when he got into the car, he looked back and said, send the materials again. Privately, in London, Eurocom's legal team was wary. The Brexit regulatory shifts had made compliance a nightmare, and Venturon's standard contract language was riddled with ambiguities. Marin had flagged it before. They hadn't fixed it, so she fixed it herself. At T11:40 that night, sitting in a tiny flat she'd rented for 2 nights, she rewrote the terms using her templates once developed quietly through Trovant's counsel. Jenna Park. The next morning, she handed the updated drafts across the polished table at Eurocom's headquarters. Linda Clark, the no-nonsense GC, raised an eyebrow. This isn't the Venturon standard, she said. It's the one that works, Marin replied. Unless you prefer a 3-week delay and 50 red lines. Linda skimmed the top page. You did this? Yes, off the record. Linda smiled. Maybe next time we negotiate, you'll be sitting on this side of the table. By the time Marin landed in Sao Paulo, she was running on caffeine and willpower. This was the final leg. Financial structure, revenue share model, data sovereignty, all the red flags in one room. Mallory was supposed to be there, supposed to shadow her. She didn't come. Marin had changed the itinerary last minute, rerouting herself through Argentina to ensure no internal team could track her in real time. Venturon thought she was arriving a day later. She was already on the ground, already working. The meeting with CEO Luis Mata lasted for hours. He grilled her on risk thresholds, capital exposure, and long-term support models. When she held firm on the numbers the board had fought her on, he finally leaned back. I trust you, Marin, he said, tapping the table. But I don't trust Venturon. You know that, right? I do. So if this falls apart later, it won't. Unless you leave. That's when she leaned in. And if there were a way, she said, keeping her voice low, for you to get this deal without that risk, without the politics, the noise, the bottlenecks, would you be open? Luis didn't blink. You know the answer to that. 3 cities, 3 meetings, 3 quiet seeds planted, and in each one, the same pattern: skepticism toward Venturon, trust toward her, not the logo. Her. Marin carried the weight of the company across hemispheres, across time zones, across fatigue. She answered questions before they were asked, rewrote contracts on her own time, stood between billion-dollar doubts and billion-dollar commitments. But she wasn't just closing a deal. She was opening a door. It didn't start with headlines or lawsuits. It started with silence. 3 emails, 4 words each. The door is open. To Yuki Osano, to Linda Clark, to Luis Mata. No attachments, no explanation, just a signal. By sunrise in London, the first login to the Travent platform was recorded as secure access from a masked Eurocom IP. Human first design, Rahim had called it. But this was more than that. It was the soft beginning of a tectonic shift. The platform hummed quietly in the background. No media splash, no flashy rollout. Just a digital doorway opening where others had slammed shut. By 10 o'clock a.m. in Tokyo, Yuki's head of technology, booked a confidential session with Marin's new infrastructure lead. The invite came with a quiet CC to Yuki's email. That told Marin everything. No escalation, no questions, just a silent nod. In Sao Paulo, the response was verbal. Luis's assistant called Travance's encrypted line, requesting a secure link for an asset migration discussion. Her voice was calm, unhurried, like this was just another Tuesday. 3 separate confirmations, no fanfare, no protest, just quiet consent. Venturon's silence had left a vacuum. Travan filled it. The hotel suite in Manhattan became mission control. Marin hadn't planned it this way, but the penthouse floor at the old hotel gave her what she needed: distance, discretion, and quiet. Rahim occupied one corner with 3 laptops and a maze of fiber optic cables. Jenna's seat was by the window, balancing legal clauses against time zone charts. Marin stood in the center. The architecture was clean, modular, and fast. Everything Venturon had promised and failed to deliver, and everything she had outlined years earlier, only to be ignored. But she hadn't deleted those drafts. She had stored them, improved them. She was never waiting for permission. She was preparing. Each day followed a rhythm: encrypted calls with client teams, documentation rewrites, silent API testing, and legal structuring. Every decision is rooted in experience. Every asset is attributed clearly. Marin wasn't stealing clients. She was reclaiming trust. And they, Yuki, Linda, Luis, weren't defecting. They were aligning. By the 3rd day, Grayson's anxiety began to leak. First came the missed replies, then the delayed logins, then the bounced emails. He called Linda, Clark's assistant. She replied with a neutral, scripted statement. Linda is currently focused on internal transitions. Yuki Asano's office returned. Venturon's legal inquiry with a single-line email. Please direct technical correspondence to your newly appointed integration lead. Luis never responded at all. Inside Venturon, theories bloomed like mold in a sealed room. External sabotage, a rogue consultant, corporate espionage. They couldn't say it not yet, but they suspected her. But the problem wasn't that Marin had turned against them. The problem was that she had never needed them. Rahim rarely spoke during those days. He was too focused. But late one night, as the rain sliced the windows and sheets, he looked up and said, "It's happening, isn't it? Not just a transition, the whole thing." Marin didn't respond. "I used to think we were building this to prove something." "We're not," she said. He nodded. "I know. We're building it because they wasted what we gave them." Jenna looked up from her laptop. "Correction. They tried to erase it." Silence returned, and with it, the weight of quiet purpose. Travant wasn't just a company. It was the sum of every late night, every dismissed idea, every redolent clause Marin had once written with invisible ink. Now, it was in steel. The hardest moment came the morning she walked past the old Venturon building. It wasn't intentional. Her cab had rerouted around construction, and suddenly there it was, the glass tower she had entered for 9 years. It shimmered in the sun like it hadn't just ejected its core architect without ceremony. Marin stared for only a moment. She didn't hate it. She just didn't belong to it anymore. Back at the hotel, a message from Jenna was waiting. 3 contracts reviewed, no amendments, no counter-proposals, all signatures prepared. Marin stared at the screen, then leaned back. Venturon hadn't been sabotaged. It had been outgrown. The voicemail was short. "Grayson, Marin, I assume you're behind this. You always were clever. I want to understand if this is personal." She played it twice, then deleted it. It had always been personal. While he gave his sister titles, Marin carried entire partnerships across continents. While he called her a resource, she'd been a strategist, a translator, a fixer. While he cut her out at 35,000 feet, she rebuilt the whole model mid-air. This wasn't revenge. It was released. On the 15th day, the platform reached full migration. 3 legacy clients, clean transitions, independent data sovereignty. No lawsuits, no headlines, just exits. Venturon sent a statement to the press. Minor realignment in strategic partnerships. Nobody believed it, because the clients weren't returning their calls, because the assets were already moved, because Travan's footprint was growing without making a sound. Marin sat by the riverside that evening, her laptop open on her knees. One tab held the contract dashboard, another showed a message from Rahim. It's done. They're ours. She smiled, the first real one since the flight. But it wasn't about the win. It was about the way they won. No shouting. No courtrooms. Just one woman, two friends, and the clarity that comes from knowing you were never wrong, only underestimated. Marin typed a note to Jenna. Partnership announcement draft. Keep it clean. Keep it quiet. The subject line? Completion. Jenna scheduled the media post for 7:45 a.m. Monday. No press tour. No live Q&A. No CEO selfie with a glass of champagne. Just a two-line announcement. Travan Inc. has completed strategic integration with Telnova, Eurochem, and Brazil Inc. valued at $1.5 billion over 7 years. The media didn't know what to do with it. By 9 o'clock a.m. 5 analysts were requesting comment. By 10 o'clock a.m. TechWatch posted the headline. The silent takeover. How Travan dismantled Venturon from within. Marin didn't comment. She didn't need to. At 11:30 p.m. Marin drafted a private email. To Yuki, to Linda, to Luis. You kept the faith when no one else did. I won't forget it. Each of them responded within the hour. Yuki, you built what they wouldn't. Linda, no red lines this time. Luis, this time, the trust is permanent. Marin closed her laptop. She stood by the window and watched the city pulse with life. Venturon was quiet now, and silence, finally, was on her side. 1. Munich. 9 o'clock a.m. The conference room at the Global Tech Summit in Munich was lined with deep blue velvet curtains and polished glass tables. The nameplates gleamed under soft spotlighting, trying to mask the desperation of one key attendee. Grayson Hart stood stiffly in front of room C214, flanked by two compliance managers and a new interim strategy director. Their posture said confidence. Their eyes betrayed chaos. Venturon had leaked a press notice the night before, claiming a new alliance with an Eastern European cloud firm. They needed this meeting to work. Investor confidence had collapsed since Travan's quiet capture of Trident. Internally, the board was cracking, but Marin was already in the room. She hadn't come for theatrics. No security escort. No headlines. Just quiet precision. Grayson didn't notice her at first. But Marek Dvorsky, the CEO of Mercloud, did. He blinked, mid-conversation with Grayson, and offered her a surprised nod. Marin? Grayson turned. His jaw went slack. You're here with Travan, she said, stepping forward calmly. We're the other party in this joint review. Marek looked from one to the other, confusion fading as understanding dawned. He gestured to the empty chair beside his legal advisor. Then let's begin. Marin unfolded her briefing packet and slid it across the table. A clean, modular infrastructure strategy. A regional rollout plan has already been signed by CTOs across 3 countries. Not promises. Deliverables. She spoke without ego. Just clarity. Each point anchored in hard proof. Each projection built from the same architecture Venturon had ignored. The same blueprints she'd created before Grayson locked her out mid-air. Grayson tried to interrupt. This proposal is derivative. We brought the model to the table. Marin didn't flinch. You brought the noise. I brought the proof. The room held its breath. As the review closed, Marek stood. Both solutions have merits. But Travan's is clean, tested, live. Grayson exhaled in relief. Then Marin added, one condition. The room turned. I will proceed with infrastructure support, she said, only if Grayson Hart is not involved in this project. Dead silence. The soundproof walls swallowed gasps. Marek turned to Grayson. After Trident, I can't afford leadership overlap. I respect the condition. Grayson left the room pale, silent. Marin didn't smile. She just closed her folder. Outside, the spring air was warm. Jenna and Rahim waited on a shaded bench, coffees in hand. You dropped a nuke, Rahim said. No. Marin said. I rebuilt the floor they burned. Jenna raised a brow. And they let you? Because they had no one else. She sat beside them, not as an exile, but as a founder. The Travent headquarters wasn't flashy. Wood and steel, calm lighting, quiet hums of intention. That morning, they installed a new plaque near the entrance. Traventa, founded by Marin Blake. No committee, no dilution, no erasure, just her name. Finally, she stood in front of it alone, not to to breathe. 9 years erased in one keystroke, rebuilt in one signature. The boardroom wasn't about power, it was about balance. Linda Clark flipped through integration charts. Luis Mata joined via video call. His smile easy. A bonsai tree from Yuki sat at the center of the table, symbol of patience. His note read, and precision. Marin sat at the head of the table, not to command, to contribute. The industry newsfeed buzzed late afternoon. Mallory Hart resigns quietly. No comment. 2 hours later, Grayson Hart was removed from the Venturon board. Unanimous vote. No lawsuits, no denials, just erasure. The kind Marin knew intimately. Now returned. In silence, Raheem brought champagne. Jenna brought playlist options. Marin declined both. This was never about revenge. She opened the final contract. All 3 Trident partners. 7 years. $1.5 billion. She signed. Marin Blake, CEO. Her name, her ink, not hidden in footnotes. Stamped into history. If you've ever been erased. If you've watched someone else take credit for what you bled for. If you've stayed quiet while waiting for your moment, this is your reminder. You are not invisible. You are not replaceable. And you are not done. Let silence be your power. Let clarity be your revenge. And when it's time, let them hear you not through noise, but through the echo of everything they lost when they lost you. It began not with applause, but with stillness. The Monday after the press release, Travent's new headquarters opened its doors. No ribbon-cutting ceremony, no media swarm. Just a quiet click of a biometric scanner as Marin Blake entered the building she now fully owned. The lobby was lined with minimalist wood panels, warm lighting, and a quiet hum of clean energy. There was no receptionist desk, just a greeting wall, built by those who refused to be erased. Marin paused before it. This wasn't just a space. It was a reclamation. Across the city, Venturon scrambled. Boardroom meetings extended into the night. Analysts demanded answers. Their stock took a hit. Investors began whispering. Clients delayed renewals. Grayson Hart was gone. Mallory had vanished from the scene. And the company issued hollow statements that felt more like obituaries than strategies. Inside their now sterile office, one junior analyst whispered, "She took everything without saying a word." But that wasn't true. She had spoken. They just never listened. Travent meetings were different. No long tables with designated power seats. No slide decks filled with fluff. The first strategy session happened over coffee, seated in a circle. Linda, Yuki, and Louise joined remotely, their faces appearing on 3 mounted panels that framed the room. "We don't need hierarchy," Marin said. "We need clarity." Raheem presented the modular integration roadmap. Jenna reviewed legal pre-clearances for all next quarter expansions. Everyone contributed. It wasn't about dominance. It was about delivery. Yuki summarized it best. "They used to ask us what could go wrong. Now you ask what we want to make right." Weeks passed. Marin visited 3 cities in 7 days, not to secure deals, but to meet the teams implementing them. She shook hands with technicians in Tokyo, shared lunch with analysts in Rio, and listened to engineers in London sketch better redundancy protocols on napkins. Everywhere she went, people recognized the name now, not from fame, but from follow-through. She passed a billboard in Frankfurt. Travent secures future with quiet confidence. She didn't stop to take a picture. She simply kept moving. Grayson had assumed the world only listened to volume. Mallory thought titles earned loyalty. They had built Venturon on bluster, branding, and boardroom whispers. Marin had built Travent in quiet rooms, over-coded frameworks and human-first systems. She hadn't just taken clients, she had taken the blueprint and improved it. 6 weeks after launch, Marin stood alone in the boardroom late at night. The city shimmered beyond the glass, her reflection framed beside it. Her face looked the same, but her presence didn't. She wasn't waiting for approval. She wasn't fighting for her seat. She was the seat. She tapped her fingers lightly on the table and whispered to the empty room. You erased the wrong name. Venture capital firms flooded Trevent with offers. You could go public within 18 months. We'll 10x your valuation. What if we made you the face of the next tech summit? Marin declined them all. Trevent didn't need noise. It needed stability. She told her team, let's scale only what we can sustain. And they did. Not fast, not flashy, just right. One morning, an envelope arrived. No return address. Inside was a single-page note, typed on unmarked paper. I underestimated you. That was my failure. You weren't just the architect of the Trident deal. You were the future. I see that now, G. Marin read it once. She didn't need his apology. But she kept the letter as proof. Not his regret, but of her resilience. The final integration report arrived in mid-September. 0 defects. 100% client retention. 8 new regions requesting onboarding. Marin scheduled one final meeting with her leadership team. They entered the room with smiles and exit plans. We're not done, Marin said. We're just beginning. She unveiled the 5-year vision. Full sovereign architecture for emerging economies. Free legal templates for startups building cross-border tech. A mentorship fund for women in systems design. The table fell quiet. Then Jenna said, it sounds impossible. Marin smiled. So did this. On Trevent's new careers page, a small quote sat tucked at the bottom corner. If you've ever been told you're too much, too quiet, too early, too late, too anything to lead, come build with us. It didn't go viral, but the inbox filled. Hundreds of applicants, from overlooked engineers, silenced strategists, erased interns. Marin read every third one herself, because she had once been them. Months later, during a quiet winter evening, Marin returned to the small cafe she had frequented during her venture-on days. She ordered the same tea, sat at the same window seat. The barista recognized her. You look different. I feel it, she said. She pulled out her notebook, not to sketch revenge, but to map the next version of the future. Across the street, the venture-on building sat empty. For sale. Lights off. Marin didn't gloat. She simply sipped her tea and began to write. This was never just a takedown. It was a rebuild. Not from rubble, but from roots. Where others shouted, Marin listened. Where they postured, she prepared. Where they erased, she engraved. Not every story ends in fire. Some rise in silence. And now, the foundation is set, and the future has her name carved in the frame. Marin Blake, Treventa. What we build belongs to those who create it.